This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, I'm Meteo Mundo Chief Meteorologist Rusty McCraney. Thank you for joining us for this latest video on this Tuesday. And again, if these videos help you out with the forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I gotta tell you something, there's gonna be a lot to be following for the week ahead. So if you want the notifications when we drop the newest video, the newest forecast, make sure you subscribe to the channel because again, there'll be some things to monitor. We'll start off with the broad perspective across the Atlantic Basin. We still have three areas of interest. The one in yellow could potentially become a subtropical system off of the east coast of the United States and the northern side of the Bahamas late this week and into the weekend. We still have Hurricane Nigel, which is still forecast to briefly become a major Category 3 hurricane before it moves into the northern Atlantic, well away from any landmass. Now, the one that we'll really be monitoring will be this area in red, another tropical disturbance coming off the west coast of Africa. Hurricane Center thinks there's a 70% chance of tropical development in this area. And more than likely in the next 4 to 5 days, we're going to get a tropical depression to form in this area and maybe even a tropical storm. The next name on the list is Ophelia. So we'll be monitoring that for you very closely. Just a little bit zoomed in on this. At the end of this track, the Hurricane Center has nudged it slightly north and west of where it was. Maybe a decent sign of trying to get a recurve before the windward and the leeward islands and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. But I got to tell you something, the models aren't necessarily agreeing on that. Now, again, all we have in this area right now is just an open tropical wave, nothing more than that. So the models do have a tough time kind of picking up on what's going to be happening. But I want to show you the GFS model, okay? There's two major global models, the GFS American model and the ECMWF European model. You're looking at the GFS model, and it really is developing two distinct areas from this region that we were just talking about. The first one here develops as it moves to the west, and it does head towards the windward and the leeward islands and does try and wrap up a system over that area as we get towards the early part of next week. The second area is a little bit more ill-defined and kind of moves up to the north and northwest. So at this point in time, the GFS model isn't really agreeing with that Hurricane Center's area. Now, I want to be very cautious and just let everyone know, look, this is one model run of the GFS model. The last model run had some tropical disturbance moving into the windward and leeward islands, but it wasn't wrapped up like this, okay? So this is simply watch and wait mode, but at this point in time, the GFS model does try to bring in a tropical system right over the southern side of the windward islands, and the southern side of the leeward islands, the northern side of the windward islands, places like Martinique and Guadeloupe. And again, this would be something that we would have to monitor very closely for these areas, even the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, and of course, Puerto Rico. But again, very, very specifically, this is just one model run of the GFS. This would basically be a week from now. But there is an opportunity that a system tries to wrap up in the Western Atlantic, moving across the windward and leeward islands and into the eastern side of the Caribbean. Again, it's just one model run. Let's not put a lot of weight into it right now. And again, a kind of another disturbance on the heels of that one. So just showing you that the GFS model isn't really necessarily in agreement with trying to take whatever is going to try and develop here in the next 4 and 5 days and shove it to the north and west, just like Lee and Nigel did. So for these areas, just stay very vigilant. We'll keep you updated as we go throughout the week. Let's talk about what's going to be happening in the Bahamas. Now, again, we still have that area of interest, potentially development into a subtropical system late this week. 30% chance of development from the northern side of the Bahamas, including Grand Bahama, up towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I want to also just simply mention that it is going to be a wet week ahead for the Bahamas, regardless of any subtropical development. This is the live radar on this early Tuesday, and just look how wet it already is for places like Grand Bahama, Freeport, Lucaya, High Rock, West End, on over towards Bimini right now. Pretty heavy rainfall across Marsh Harbor and portions of Abaco. Same thing for Androstown and Andros. New Providence, Nassau, you've had some scattered rain. Same thing for Luther. So for the Northwest Bahamas, at least through late Thursday, if not through Friday, we're going to have a good chance for rain and some heavier downpours as well. Now, let's look at what this system could be doing here. I'm going to loop this into motion for you as well. And what you're going to see is as we get into, I'm going to let it loop one more time to get to the beginning of the time frame. As we get into tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to potentially see this broad area developing and then moving up to the north and to the east. So that's why it's going to bring wet weather initially to the Bahamas, and then eventually it's going to start to bring that up towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina, on over towards Charleston and Savannah, Georgia. And again, you can see I'll just kind of slowly step this out in frame. Again, not expecting more than likely a really condensed low-level center of circulation. Might have a mid-level center of circulation, but we're going to still have some very gusty winds and heavy rainfall the north and the western side of this potential subtropical system. It's going to really kick up the surf and sea conditions from the Outer Banks right on through the east coast of Florida and the northern side of the Bahamas. So marine interests need to keep that in mind, beach interests as well. And again, as we go through time, one thing the GFS model does a little bit differently than this time yesterday is it tries to at least keep a piece of this system off of the east coast of the United States. So as it moves up towards Virginia and into New England, maybe the opportunity to kind of scrape along with some pretty gusty winds. I can actually show you that right now. I'm going to take off the layer of reflectivity, and we'll go to this product, which is going to be your wind gusts. I'll put that into motion, and you can see again, we could have some decent wind gusts developing out of this. Let me get down just a little bit farther off towards the south. And as we go into time, you'll start to see again the winds begin to pick up on the north and the western side of this. Time frame would be beginning on Thursday and then through Friday and into the weekend as well. So I'm going to pause it right about here, and you can see again a pretty ill-defined center, kind of elongated, more than likely mid-level. But on the northern and the western sides, if you look at our scale here, anything in the red are going to be wind gusts, not sustained winds, but wind gusts of over 40 miles an hour. So the opportunity for some tropical storm force wind gusts produced from the Outer Banks, right on through coastal South Carolina, maybe even towards coastal Georgia. Initially in the time frame, we could have some breezy conditions for the northwest side of the Bahamas, but then as we go out in time again, you can see just a little piece of this tries to stay offshore. Some very heavy winds could be moving up basically the United States East Coast as this system pulls up to the north and to the east. And again, subtropical systems do get names, so there's the opportunity that this becomes a named storm as well. Not as great of a chance, but that is a scenario. So again, this weekend along the United States East Coast, we'll be monitoring that. Now, I've mentioned the Bahamas. It's going to get some heavier rain. This is your accumulated rainfall totals over the next 7 days. And for Grand Bahama from the West End area towards Freeport, the opportunity to get 3 to 4 inches of rain out of it. Same thing for Bimini and Walker's Key. We could have some heavier rain for portions of Abaco and Andros and Eleuthera as well. So again, it's just going to be a wet, stormy time frame. Surf and sea conditions will be kicking up as well. So mariners, please keep this in mind. And basically every afternoon, at least through Thursday, some areas in the northwest Bahamas could accumulate more than an inch of rain. This is the wide view of the accumulated rain for the Caribbean and the western Atlantic. Again, here are the Windward and Leeward Islands. You'll start to see late in this time frame that moisture begin to move in with that potential tropical disturbance. And on this scale, anything above 2 inches is going to be highlighted in red. You get to the deeper reds, you're more than 3 inches of rain. So again, we're going to have some wet weather for Haiti and the Dominican Republic as we get towards the weekend. Scattered showers for Puerto Rico, potentially some heavier rain moving into the Windward and Leeward Islands. Looking pretty good for places like Aruba and Bon Air. Some very heavy rain just off of the east coast of Central America, but again, well away from most islands. Jamaica would see some scattered showers in this scenario as well, but nothing too prominent. So for Grand Bahama, again, wet and stormy with some heavy rain likely through Thursday. It's a 90% chance the remainder of this Tuesday, an 80% chance for both Wednesday and Thursday as that subtropical low begins to develop and pulls to the north. It will pull the moisture away as well. So we'll call for more isolated storms on Friday and Saturday. Daytime highs will be remaining in the mid-80s. Again, a lot happening across the Caribbean and the Bahamas over the next several days. We'll keep you updated. And to do that, all you got to do, friends, is like and subscribe right here to Meteo Mundo.